Hey all, 17th of November, Autumn Statement. Welcome to Newspaper Breakdown. We're only going to talk about the Autumn Statement today because that's the only major thing. It is austerity to, die harder. Before, this is just a small list of what the Tories have done for us thus far. And of course, this is only tiny, there's much more than this. UK is the only economy smaller than before the pandemic in G7, which is good. Average real wage is less than in 2007, which, put that into perspective, that means in all that time, that is lost growth. So, nearly 20 years of, we'll say 15 years on the button of lost growth, where we should be up there and we're not even fucking there. This is what they've done to us. Highest inflation in 14 years, 16 million people in poverty in this country, including millions of children, of course, 7.1 million NHS waiting list. They're doing their best to destroy the NHS. I'm not 100% sure why. It's like Chinese torture on the NHS, and it has been ever since the Tories get into power. There is something, I think it's because they were not the ones to come up with it, because they both had the argument that, Labour were the ones who created the NHS. If I'm right, and I think I am, in both manifestos of the time, the concept of an NHS was in both of them. So it wasn't like Labour did something that the Tories were dead against. If I recall, they were both, I wasn't around at the time, but they both came up with the idea, and I think the Tories are so annoyed that they never get, that they can't say, we did the NHS. They would much prefer to destroy the fucking thing. You've also got life expectancy down, which, if you look around, potentially a good thing. Although there is a widening in the inequality of life in this country, meaning that one of the main reasons that life expectancy is going down is because poor people, their life expectancy is dropping faster than rich people. Hundreds of thousands of people died due in part to austerity that we've had since 2010, when the Tories originally got in and fucked everyone. Thanks Nick Clegg for that one, by the by, saying that I voted for Lib Dems in 2010. What a mistake that was. But with all of that, with everything, with every little bit of that, we've got more billionaires. Poverty rising, destruction in social care, destruction NHS, real terms cuts fucking everywhere, but more billionaires somehow. Fucking madness, isn't it? Let's start with, before we get to Hunt's budget, which I'm not going to go through all of it because it was like a couple of hours long and I can't be fucked, if I'm honest with you. It was for a Tory, it was a fine budget, but I mean, you're comparing it to the mini budget that Kwarteng and Truss did that set everything on fire. You compare it to that, it was like a grown-up speaking, but if you compare it to where we actually are in reality, we're still fucked. OBR, which is the Office of Budget Responsibility, is our spending watchdog. One of the big things that we had when the mini budget came out with Kwarteng and Truss is that they decided to not let the OBR release a forecast coinciding with it, which is what the OBR usually do. So the OBR have come out and said that we're in a recession that's going to last more than a year, going to push 500,000 people out of work, and the biggest fall in living standards since records began. So it's important to hear all of this before you start here, before you look, and you should do your own research constantly on everything. Don't just listen to my mad bollock ramblings on bullshit, especially when it comes to the economy, because the budget has always been something that's done me head in. But it's important to listen to that type of stuff before you go in. And if you listen to the likes of Hunt speak, you'll think that everything's fantastic and the only person to blame is Putin and the coronavirus, and they've done nothing wrong ever, and the Tories are fantastic and we're lucky to have them. And Brexit was a wonderful idea. So it's effectively, we're going to wipe out the past 8 years of growth as wage rises fail to keep pace with inflation and interest rate rises. The past 8 years growth hasn't been fantastic anyway. So wiping that out is just adding to our good fortune. The small growth that we have had is going to be wiped out because we've got the Tories in government. Ridiculous. This is the third time, only the third time, since the mid-1950s that we are going to have back-to-back years in falling living standards. The last time was after 2008, which means that at least 2 of the 3 declines in living standards I've been alive for, which is good times. The economy will shrink by 2%. GDP will only reach pre-pandemic levels by the end of 2024. As I said at the start, we are the only G7 economy that has not got to higher than pre-pandemic levels. And you have to look who's playing. You go, I tell you, the pandemic and Putin. Well, what, did the other countries in fucking Narnia or something? Is that where they all got their fucking money? No, you want to blame everything apart from the obvious thing that's there. This isn't correlation and causation. There's not always a fucking thing. No, we're pointing in that direction. It's there. Neon lights. You're the dickhead. You're the dickhead. You're the dickhead. The OBR forecast is worse than the March forecast that they did because of a weaker economy, higher inflation, and higher interest rates. Now, to Hunt's actual budget. No mention of Brexit throughout his budget, by the by, but why would he? Why the fuck would he? Austerity 2, die harder. Hunt warned of difficult times ahead. Every time they say stuff like this, it never makes me feel like we'll all be suffering the same. You know? When it's we're all gonna be difficult. It's all gonna be hard for us. Like, are you struggling though? Are you gonna be struggling? Because I don't think you are gonna be one of the people. You're making these difficult decisions for everyone whilst above us, and that never seems fair to me. Inflation level increases to work, so there's going to be inflation level increases to working age benefits and pensions, which is nice. He of course goes on to claim that he's looking for a compassionate approach, which we've heard this a lot, the compassionate, over the past few weeks. Every time they say it, it makes me feel like when you meet that bloke and he calls himself a nice guy all the time, and you get that little thing in the back of your head going, shit, this bloke's a cunt. I'm a nice guy. Why do you keep telling me? Why do you keep saying you're such a nice guy? That's the same with Hunt, with consistent claims of fucking compassion. Going, well, why do you keep saying it so much? Because surely your actions will show it. And they never do somehow. Fuck knows how. As I mentioned, he goes on global factors, nothing to do with 12 years of Tory government. Why would it be? Already in recession. The economy is expected to grow 4.2% this year, down 1.4% next year. According to the OBR, when they did it in March, it was forecast to be up 3.8% this year and up 1.8% next year. Putting in new fiscal rules, underlining debt must fall as a percentage of GDP within 5 years, and public sector borrowing must be below 3% of GDP. Now this is arbitrary bollocks. I've put it in there to make it sound like they're responsible, but those rules are the rules that have given meaning to the black hole. Because if you put those rules in, you say, well, this is, and we say, this has to happen by this time, then all the numbers change. And once all the numbers change, you get your black hole. You take them away, you don't have a fucking black hole anymore. Tax threshold freezes for income and inheritance tax until April 2028, going to affect poor people more, because poor people have less money. And if you do not have a constant economic growth and constant wage rises along with it, then inflation is going above wages, meaning that your cost of living standards goes down, you have less money to spend. Rich people are fine, they're always going to be fine, they're rich, unless they get a fucking gambling addiction or a coke addiction. And even with a fucking coke addiction, if they earn enough, they can fucking live through that. It's only the gambling one you'd lose all your fucking money on. At least there's a chance with a like a drug addiction that you'll die before losing all your fucking money. There are good news though. Dividend allowance has been cut, along with a cut to exempt allowance for capital gains, which is very good. A lot of especially rich people tend to take most of their money from dividends and capital gains, and it should be taxed like income. You could argue, it's something I would argue. 45% rate of tax goes from 150,000 to 125,140 pounds. So it means that the highest rate of tax we have in this land, 45%, will start being paid at a lower income, which is fine. But the government have gone from the giving us the highest tax burden in 40 years to now the highest tax burden in 70 years. They have done a windfall tax on energy and gas firms to 14 billion. Oil and gas, not energy and gas, that's the same fucking thing, dipshit. Windfall tax rises to £14 billion, which is good, with a new temporary 45% levy on electricity producers. Good. As I say, it's a fine. It could be a lot worse, this budget. It could be an awful lot worse, but we will see more people going into poverty because we have the Tories in. There are more of us than they are of them. Kick them out. Find a way to fucking get rid of them. What they are doing, and this is an important thing to bear in mind, is that they are setting up for most of the pain to come in after the next election. As I've said previously, they are doing this for one reason alone, because they think you are thick as pig shit. And they will probably be proven right, because time and time again you've shown yourself to be thick as pig shit. So they will bring in the pain once the Labour Party get in, and they will say, look at what you've done to the economy. Because they do not want to be blamed for the current state of everything in the same way that Labour were blamed for 2008 financial crisis. Although with both of them there is blame to be held on them. You see the removal of regulations that came about for the 2008, but that was global. 12 years of fuckery in this for the Tory party has started with austerity, went to Brexit, couple of global things, but it is the Tory party. It's why we are the lowest. It's why in the G7 we're the only country who hasn't got over pre-pandemic levels. You can blame all the global stuff you want, but that's not the case, is it? Simple, just look with your eyes. Stop talking out your hole. I hope you enjoyed it. I will speak to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.